Hey Tipsters, our 100th episode is coming up on September 9th of 2019, and we are really excited and delighted and happy to still be here after 100 episodes. And we're giving away a exquisite 20-ounce tumbler by Southern Girl Creations. We have several of her items in our home and we love them all. This tumbler has our logo on the front. It can be used for hot or cold drinks. It comes with a straw, not a plastic straw you throw away or shove up a turtle's butt, but a really awesome forever plastic straw. Really nice, strong plastic straw. Great lid with the sippy cup slide. You can move it for coffee or a cold beverage. It's so versatile and beautiful, and it comes with a $10 Starbucks gift card. So if you would like to be entered for a chance to win this really awesome tumbler for our 100th episode, you have to go old school and either email us at jttipsters@gmail.com and say, I want to win the tumbler, and we will put you in a drawing. Or you can call us and leave a voicemail at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Leave your name and even just your phone number. And if you win, we can call you and get your address. So happy 100th episode, and we wouldn't be us without you. Thank you, Tipsters. This episode of Just the Tipsters is sponsored by Clean Spa Bath & Body. That's clean with a K. Cleanspa.com. Clean Spa. Prepare to smell delicious.
From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Hello, freshman.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, that nagging feeling you have about, well, you know, an educated guess about a possible lead, a way to properly and painfully punish whoever it was that thought of the idea of motorized scooters, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. She loves a mystery almost as much as she loves her Instant Pot. Almost. Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. You learn something new every day. I had no idea that you were a scooter bigot.
Well, I'm not a scooter generally, but the kind of scooter that those little punks drive around on the street and block everything and then drop them in the middle of the street.
Right, not scooters made for people with disabilities, but scooters made for large cities that you can park on the corner and pay a certain amount and then pick one up and drive it around the city.
Yes.
Yeah, those are a pain in the ass.
Not that I wouldn't be pissed off at people in motorized scooters who are disabled as well if they drove
ran over
around
you
in the middle of the street and ran in front of you, and then
it does happen more and more often. And in Southern California, we have seen a couple of really bad injuries where, ironically, the scooter drivers come out pretty much unscathed.
Yeah.
But the people that are walking that they hit, one man, both legs broken. He was a very strong, healthy specimen. He was like in his early 40s, but he was like a runner. And he was really injured badly in a collision with a man half his age riding a motorized scooter.
I'm sorry, those I want to take those little punks and just wring their little scrawny little necks.
Yeah, I try to be okay, live and let live. If you want to pay money to ride a little scooter to get you a couple blocks, because you don't want to Lyft or Uber or walk, okay. But I think it's the motorized part. Not that, like a push scooter
right.
or razor scooter would be any less dangerous, but a motorized scooter, I feel like you have less control.
Well, and you feel like you're more powerful when you're driving it. Last night I was at a baseball game. Okay, we came out of it was a sold out baseball game at Dodger Stadium, and the traffic was absolutely insane. People driving like nuts anyway, in bumper to bumper traffic coming out of Dodger Stadium, and there was a whole row of these little assholes on these scooters that they had taken their scooters, I guess, or maybe they have them available at Dodger Stadium. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
But they were weaving in and out of traffic,
right.
And I almost killed a couple of them.
Oh,
it's just anyway.
Other than me having to get you representation from really good counsel, that would have just been a great story.
Uh-huh.
If the Dodgers lost to the Giants, you were pissed off. A couple of hipsters and scooters wearing Giants jerseys.
No, it was It was the Yankees.
Oh, sorry.
So it was even worse.
I don't even know.
It was even worse.
Sorry,
they were playing the Yankees, and the Yankees crushed them last night. It was horrible. I felt bad. I was pissed off anyway.
Yeah, see? I think we've gotten to the root of the problem.
Yeah, well, that's right.
You're a scooter bigot, but more importantly, you're a Yankees hater.
Yes, because I'm a normal human being.
Because you're a normal human being.
Right.
And now we're into a part of the world that I know nothing about. So there's wonderful podcasts about, ESPN 8, the Ocho, or whatever you want to listen to, but we're not talking sports on just the Tip-Sters. This is not tips on sports, no matter what producer Mark wants me to do.
No,
so,
I understand.
Thank you. So this is like a double episode, although I don't think it's going to be 8 hours long. I am fascinated by cases where 2 or more people die together in a strange way. And one of these cases is solved because it was the bizarre event was captured on home video after the owner of the home came home. And the other one is an unsolved case, which I hope that you will listen to. And if you have any ideas, this is an 11-year-old case now, and it's a really interesting one, and I'm delighted to cover it. But before we do that, I love the world of podcasting and the people that are supportive of other podcasts, and sharing promos for a show is one of my favorite things to do. So these fellas, Matt and Cy from Jacksonville, Florida, had given me their promo for their podcast called Heist. And a few weeks ago, we're trying to get a few episodes ahead. We typically want to record the episodes the same week that they are available, just so they're fresh and new, instead of banking a bunch of, evergreen episodes. But we have some travel coming up, so we're going to have to be a couple of weeks ahead. A week or two ahead, different recording schedule than we normally have. So we had already recorded the episode for that week. So we just put the Heist promo at the beginning of the episode, which I really do not like to do because I feel like it gives the podcast short shrift, which it doesn't really, because you get to hear the podcaster's voice, their idea of what their podcast is about. But if I like a podcast and I want to run your promo, I want to explain why I like the podcast. And I don't want to put promos for podcasts that I don't particularly care for. So I felt like I owed the Heist boys an additional running of their promo, because they are so interesting and smart and funny and quirky and weird and irreverent, and yet respectful of what happens during a heist, where sometimes people do not survive. But in a heist, there's almost always something funny or interesting. And these two guys, Matt and Cy, are so smart and funny, and we love listening to their podcast. And I was really hoping they would cover Dog Day Afternoon, which is, one of my favorite movies and one of the most interesting heists because of the reason why
it's
someone...
It's a fascinating story.
Yes, it is.
It really
and
is.
The 70s, and it was, we're in 2019, it would still be an odd reason for someone to want to rob banks to get money. But in the 70s, it was really interesting and fascinating and bizarre. And I love these guys. So if you could run their promo, producer Mark.
Absolutely. They are fantastic. Here it is.
Hi, guys. I'm Simon.
And I'm Matt.
And together we host a podcast called, Heist Podcast, where we talk about heists. We go into the world of heists and the people behind them, discussing heists in the news and the biggest, most famous heists from history.
Historical heists, epic heists, movie heists, all the heists.
You name it, whether it's stealing moon rocks, millions of dollars, or I think one time we even discussed meatballs being stolen from someone's garage. If you love to hear about the minds and the characters of the people who pull off these amazing heists, give us a listen. We're Heist Podcast.
Check us out on Heist.
I love those boys. And speaking of things that we love our sponsor, Clean Spa by Jennifer Hardaway. So we've been talking about the dozens of original fragrances that are available that you can handcraft yourself from Clean Spa's selection of lotions, rubs, moisturizers, body washes. But did you know that you can also design your favorite fragrance to fill any room in your home with the Clean Spa Flameless Diffuser? So each diffuser is made to last upwards of at least 6 months. You get a kit that includes a designer bottle of your favorite Clean Spa fragrance and a set of the reeds that you dip into the oil and then flip them right side up. And then your room smells as deliciously personal as you would like it to smell, because you can pick any Clean Spa fragrance for your diffuser. And they're, much healthier. They're not as abrasive as room sprays or, strongly pungent. And they're inspired with really natural fragrances like fig and fern, blue Hawaii, California grapefruit. You can pick any of the scents from the Clean Spa library that you like and make it just the way you like it. So shop for your diffuser kit at cleanspa.com and make sure to enter the promo code Tip-Sters at the checkout, because you get 15% off your entire order by using the promo code. And you always get free shipping with an order of $85 or more. Remember, that's Clean Spa with a K. Cleanspa.com. Clean Spa, prepare to smell delicious. So this is, like I said, a kind of a 2-part episode because of the fascination I have with two dudes who die together in odd ways. So this story was suggested by Tipster Ann, and it happened just recently in July in Davenport, Iowa. And these two men who were teachers, one was retired, one was still teaching, both last name Anderson, Mark Anderson and Ken Anderson, not related. Ken is 57, Mark is 60. And it's like one of those conspiracy things, like, JFK had a secretary named Nixon and Nixon had a secretary named Kennedy. It's like one of those. So these two men named Anderson are house sitting for a beautiful home. It's like an estate owned by their friend John Weezer or Weesor. And John Weesor owns a tavern in Davenport, Iowa, and he was on vacation. So these two men who were described as saints, like they were teachers that everyone wanted to have who worked for the Iowa, state school system. And they were house sitting for their friend's estate. And both men were found dead in the pool. Both men, last name Anderson, not related, friends, both teachers, dead in the pool. So Mr. Weesor, who's 52, had been trying to get a hold of the Anderson men who were watching his home. And he asked some employees of his tavern that was only a few blocks from his home to check on the two house sitters because he couldn't get a hold of either of them for a day. So they apparently had died the day before, is what is kind of coming out now. And they had been found the following day. So they were in the pool for, a day.
Just lying in the pool face down.
Yep. Both of them drowned. Now, the thing, there were so many theories like, oh my gosh, could they have been electrocuted? Like, was there like the pool vacuum cleaner system or the pool filtration system, or could something have electrocuted them when they were in the pool together at the same time? So apparently now it comes out that there was a camera. And this house is pretty exquisite, I have to say. There were actually pictures from the 2011 installation of the pool, a fiberglass pool that was put in the ground. And Mr. Weesor had solar panels put on his roof, but not solar looking. They look like concrete tile. But I don't know how he did it. Maybe it just comes with having a lot of money.
I guess I've never heard of that before.
It was such a big deal that the newspaper covered it. The Davenport Register covered the installation of Mr. Weesor's pool. And it has a beautiful gate with a big W on it. And I mean, it's, it's very fascinating. This house, even in Davenport, Iowa, that's kind of grand. Part of it looks like an English Tudor, and it has a perfectly described by the Davenport Register, perfectly landscaped yard. It's really interesting. So after looking at the camera footage, apparently one person in the pool found themselves in trouble, and the other person tried to help him.
Okay, but do we know what kind of trouble?
Yes, they were going to drown. And the other Anderson person tried to help his friend, and then they both drowned. So that happens. That's why I hear about it mostly in the ocean, not in a pool, because you can typically get to one side or the other. But you hear about people in the ocean or in large bodies of water, a pond, where one person is drowning and another person goes to help him, and they, end up both being pulled down.
Right.
Right.
That doesn't happen in a swimming pool.
It usually does not. So I don't know if they were both not good swimmers. I have questions, let's just say that. But they are absolutely coming out and saying this was an accident, purely an accident. It's awful that both men have passed. It is a terrible accident. It's just an odd thing, but
Tragic.
Right. They say they don't want to get into the details of the drowning out of respect of the men's families. Now, Ken Anderson has a daughter and Mark Anderson has 2 children, and the register is just can't get a hold of any of the men's relatives. And I understand that. Maybe the police, are saying don't talk about it. I don't know. But, Mr. Wiesor, who adored both of them, said that, they were saints. They were terrific men. And if it were something more, unexplainable, I would hope Mr. Wiesor would come out and say, this is what happened. But I can't explain, except that both men drowned accidentally. That's all I'm going to say, because it's,
wow.
I know, it's so these stories where 2 people die together, especially 2 men that are friends that are not in a relationship or that are family, they're 2 friends. It just is it's an odd thing. And it's here are both of these men, both last name Anderson, both best friends, both teachers, both die house sitting their friend's house. I'm still going to have questions, but I can't do anything if the police and the press are saying there's camera footage and they drowned accidentally.
But they're not letting anybody see the footage.
I don't know if Mr. Wiesor has the option to let anyone see it if he's turned it over to the police. So the police are saying we're not getting into details about the drowning to protect the family. So I have questions.
Well, I think anybody listening to this has probably the same questions.
Right. But I'm not going to get an answer. This is one of those ones where it's just listed as an accidental drowning. There's, absolutely no hint of malfeasance. It wasn't electrocution in the pool. It wasn't someone broke in and bludgeoned them and left them in the pool. Nothing like that. But both men died in the pool and were discovered a day later. It just is. I'm just going to call it a heartbreaking accident. I can't think of anything else to call it. So I guess that's that. And I'm just going to blame Tipster Ann for this terrible mystery that will be hanging over our heads from Davenport, Iowa. But, she's a good person. She didn't mean to.
Well, there may be a tipster listening to this that knows something a little bit more that can fill us in.
If there is a tipster that wants to email us at jttipsters@gmail.com or call us, it's a completely anonymous line, 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Please give us a call or an email. We would love to hear your theories. And if you happen to have a moment and would like to go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating, or if you have a few moments and would like to review the podcast, actually sit down for a moment and write a written review, we'd be really grateful also. Things are changing in the podcast world just almost on a daily basis. And since iTunes is being disbanded and split into Apple Podcast, Apple TV, and Apple Music, we have found ourselves up and down the charts. So I know reviews are only part of the equation that helps us get seen and noticed by people who haven't found us yet. But we would be really grateful if you could give us a 5-star rating, if that's what you feel. We hope that's what you feel. And if you don't have to bother giving us something you don't like. But we would also love for you to take a moment to write a review and tell us what you like about the show, what it means to you. If it means something, we want to hear that. And we did get a beautiful email from Tipster Lori this week who said that she appreciated that we didn't just rehash the same stories, and that she thought we were doing good work, which is about the nicest thing anyone can ever say. And there are many wonderful podcasts out there, but we're really grateful that you listen to us. And speaking of the podcast world, one of my favorite podcasts is called Cold Cases. Simple, to the point name, and it covers cold cases. And I guess this area, producer Mark, is like Central Illinois, like Champaign-Urbana?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
I'm going to call it Central Illinois because that's where I think it is. And Carol Varell is this wonderful, venerable journalist from the News Gazette in Central Illinois, and I adore her. I love everything about her, very even-handed way of reporting things. A lot of true crime cases she covers. And the podcast doesn't have a lot of episodes. I believe they just do one a month, but they focus on the cold cases from that area. And some of them are, so interesting and weird, and some of them are just plain old heartbreaking. This one is another of the two dudes dying together and really caught me. It really caught me. I believe the episode they did was the end of last year, like December of 2018. And a listener asked that I cover the Mark Prossi and Ryan Riddell case. And I said, oh, you will get a much better idea of the case from Carol Varell's podcast, Cold Cases. And then I went to get it for her and send it to her, and I couldn't access it on Apple Podcasts. Now, Carol has given me a link that I did find it, and it's at the www.news-gazette.com/cold cases. I found it there, but I couldn't find it on Apple Podcasts. And so because I adored her, it's one of those things you do as an adult and you feel a little weird. Like you write a letter to someone you admire and you feel a little like a crazy fangirl. But Carol Varell is such a great journalist. I just had to write her and say, look, I love your podcast, and I was trying to find this episode to send to one of my listeners because I thought you did such a great job of the story, and I can't find your episode. So I'm going to do an episode, but I want to ask your permission first and tell you that I love your writing style and I love your podcast, and I just love the whole thing. And she emailed me right back and was so sweet and said, please go ahead and cover the Prossi Riddell case. The more exposure the case gets, the better. You don't need to ask my permission, but thank you for asking. And thank you for contacting me. I'm so glad you liked the podcast. And please keep me posted. And good luck with your episode. And that is like getting, a letter from Jesus or something, just getting a response back.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool. So she gave me her permission, which she said, you don't need my permission, but you have it. And that was huge. And I'll tell you why. And I know producer Mark has, some things to say. And I'm just going to address this very surfacely. In the podcast world recently, and this, no one needs to hear my opinion of this. I wasn't going to say anything. But when I couldn't find Carol's episode, I felt a little weird about covering it myself. I just felt a little weird. So in the podcast world lately, the number one true crime podcast took a hard hit with a journalist from, I believe, Arkansas, the Democrat Gazette. she had covered a story of a murdered girl from 2003 and had done apparently months of research, spoke with the family, spoke with law enforcement, all the things you should do as a journalist and a podcaster, if I'm being honest. And the number one true crime podcast apparently took her information, which a lot of could only have been known by the author of the original article, and used it for the podcast. The podcast has been removed. The episode has been removed by the podcast hosts, as have several other episodes that they're maybe restructuring or trying to give credit to. But a huge can of worms was opened up about the definition of plagiarism. And it isn't like podcasters, especially in the true crime genre, go out and kill someone so that they can write a story so that they can be the only ones who know about the story. We are covering stories that are known and unknown, but we get our information the same place most people do. Newspapers, the internet, journalism on television. And I mean, it's a slippery slope. Again, I know producer Mark's probably going to have something to say about this, but I just wanted to get, even though I didn't need Carol's permission, I didn't need permission from the News Gazette. I didn't need permission from the other sources, in this, about this article. But, I want to make sure everyone knows I have permission from Carol. I feel like I've been knighted on my shoulders because I can do this story, even though she did a wonderful job of it, almost a year ago. And she's excited that a cold case is going to get more attention. So
which is good.
That's what I wanted to say. So go ahead, producer Mark.
And this is not just for Melissa, but it's anybody who's doing a podcast. This show has never engaged in plagiarism. Melissa has never done that. Plagiarism is when you read something or you copy something word for word, do not attribute it to the original writer, and claim it as your own. As long as you quote the source and you quote from the source and attribute the source, if you're going to read from it directly, you're fine, and that is not plagiarism. Moreover, this podcast rarely reads things word for word, and if Melissa does, she tells you where it came from. She's saying where the quote comes from. That is not plagiarism, and I think a lot of folks these days, because there's so much news and information out there, and people who are not professionals get into this field, they misunderstand what plagiarism is. And plagiarism is a very serious thing if you do it, but it's only plagiarism if you pick up the newspaper and start reading the story as if it is yours. And very, very few podcasts do that. I've never even heard one that's done that, and especially not this one. So I just wanted to say that, and I think it's wonderful that I totally understand, Melissa, why you feel the way you do. I mean, it's kind of freaky to see how people have overreacted to this, and so I understand where you're coming from. But folks, don't worry. As long as you quote from your source and attribute it to the original writer, you're not committing plagiarism.
And I appreciate what you're saying, producer Mark. And there are many podcasters who agree with you, and unfortunately a lot more that would not. And I feel like those are the people that have had their writing, their stories plagiarized. I will tell you, as far as I know, no one's ever taken anything of mine. No one wants to. And I don't want to take anything of anyone else's. I don't write scripts for that reason. I don't ever want to consciously or unconsciously take someone else's notes, work, research, and claim it as my own. I research my ass off for all of these stories, and I love doing it. It's hard and rewarding and aggravating and wonderful all at the same time. And when you keep going and find details that maybe you didn't think you would find, like what happened in this story that's coming up, it's it makes I feel like the Grinch in my heart keeps expanding. It makes your heart grow when you're like, oh, and I don't mean like an enlarged heart. I mean, it makes you feel like your heart is growing in your chest because you're like, oh, I found this, and oh, this is interesting. And there's nothing better than working your ass off and finding something and knowing you want to talk about it and add it to an episode. And it's, from the news, it's from a family source, it's from law enforcement, and knowing that's something that's interesting to you, hoping it's interesting to someone else. And I just do bullet points. You can, Tipster David has said, do you have notes? Because I can hear pages flipping, and I'm a human being and I flip pages. My pages are typically things I want to bring up in the case, notes, bullet points. I don't write a script, and I don't talk like that. If I were to talk like a lot of true crime podcasts who read a script, you guys would be so bored you would turn it off in 4 seconds. My voice is, it's been brought to my attention on a daily basis that my voice is, deep and low and blah, blah. But I don't want it to be monotone. Probably the nicest, most bizarre compliment I've been given was from Craig Lackey, Chase Lackey's father. And he said, don't take this the wrong way, but your voice is very soothing. It's like a female Morgan Freeman.
Oh, I kind of like that.
It was a great compliment, and yet
it's a great compliment.
It's something all right. So yeah, I'm a female Morgan Freeman. But anyway, I didn't want to dip into the ugliness that's been going on, but I also wanted you to know I wanted to talk about this case, but I wanted to go to, in my mind, the queen of the source, which is Carol Varell. And if you want to hear, her podcasts are shorter in length, and I just love her style. It's straightforward. There's not a lot of boopity-doo. It's just Carol discussing the case and talking with law enforcement. Unfortunately, in a lot of the cold cases in central Illinois, don't understand. Maybe it has to do with the Illinois State Police, which is a lot of where, these cases end up. They don't want to give a lot of information. But Carol is a consummate journalist, and I just love her. So I don't know that I've ever spent that much time talking about another person's podcast, but just in case, if you'd like to check it out.
The marketing department's going to be speaking with you shortly.
I'm fired. I'm totally fired. But this case is a stunner. I am fascinated by this case, and not just because of the beautiful coverage that Carol did. Digging into it deeper, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? So in 2008, January 28th of 2008, two friends who've been friends for, not 2 decades because they're only 32 years old each, but 15 years, probably half their lives, they met in college at the University of Illinois. And they had a regular day, supposed to just be like every other day, and they spent some time together after work, and then they were both found dead from gunshot wounds at one of the friends' home. So Ryan Riddell and Mark Prosse had been friends since college. Ryan Riddell had majored in, farming. I don't know exactly the major, but he worked on a family farm and ended up after college going back to work for his family farm. Now, Mark Prosse would help Ryan Riddell occasionally on his family farm, but he went on to get a job as a foreman at a lighting company, and that's where he was working at the time of his death. Now, Ryan Riddell is married, had a son on the way. Mark Prosse had a girlfriend who lived with him, and he had purchased a home in northern Edgar County in central Illinois. So Mark Prosse ends his shift on January 28th of 2008 at his job at North American Lighting in Paris, Illinois. At 4 o'clock, Ryan picks up Mark at North American Lighting, and they go to Tuscola. I don't know where that is in Illinois, but this is the only piece of information that bothers me. And it could just be me being too nosy, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to be nosy. It's in every single piece of information online, and that is from the News Gazette, That is from the Journal-Gazette Times Courier. That is from the Illinois State Police, Zone 5 investigations, which I was wondering, what the fuck is Zone 5? Like, it sounds like MI5. I think Illinois is split up into zones from what I can...
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what I can...
Well, I don't know what the...
Right, because I thought Zone 5 investigations was like a special elite group, like SWAT. No.
It sounds like the name of a cheesy science fiction TV show.
It does.
You have entered Zone 5.
Yeah, Secure Sector 7 and Zone 5 investigations. So it's just the way the state is split up. So the Illinois State Police and has this section Zone 5, which makes up probably Champaign, Urbana, Central Illinois. So at 4:00, Ryan picks up Mark, and then they go to a meeting. And that's the part that bothers me. What is a meeting? They don't work together, except that Mark occasionally helps Ryan out on his family farm and his family farming business. If they're going to an AA meeting and everyone wants to be anonymous about where they're going, that's fine. Say they went to meet a group of friends. Most of my friends that are in any sort of a anonymous grouping, when I say like, oh, how did you meet that person? They're like, oh, I met them through friends. And then there's the code word like friends of Bill W from, say what the hell kind of meeting it was. Perhaps
so nowhere in any of the
nowhere.
Press.
They will not tell you what kind of meet. I'm like, is it a business meeting? Is it a meeting to find out how Cheetos get orange covering? Is it a meeting on how to stop drinking? What the fuck is a meeting? Just tell me. Maybe it has something.
Is it an Amway meeting?
Right, a family meeting. A meeting of people who graduated from University of Illinois. It's so mysterious and I hate it. The only thing I can think is that it's an anonymous meeting of some sort, which could be explained. You don't have to say they were going to Gamblers Anonymous. You don't have to say what it is. Say, they were meeting friends. But just to say a meeting, to me, just that horribly obtuse reference, that could have had something to do with their deaths.
Well, of course.
So it bothers me.
And I think they should say whether it was, an anonymous meeting of some sort or an addiction meeting or something.
They don't have to.
Well, but it would help because who knows?
Well, right. Okay. I get what you're saying, but they have, a map, a really nice map drawn up in the News Gazette to show you their route. And it's a bizarre route of what they did. But so anyway, back to the timeline. So Mark and Ryan leave Ryan's house, and Ryan was supposed to drop Mark off back at his home in Chrisman. And then he was going to come back, Ryan Riddell was going to come back home to his wife and have dinner. That's at 7 p.m. So at 4 p.m., Ryan's picked up Mark at work. They've gone to their meeting, whatever the fuck that means. At 7, Mark and Ryan leave Ryan's house and then Ryan is dropping Mark off at his house. At 7:22, they make a stop in Newman at a convenience store. Now, here's the most interesting thing about this case so far. The short timeline where something could have happened, and it is short. Sometime between 7:22, after they've stopped in Newman, and 8:15, when they have gone back to Mark's house and all the family members are calling them and getting no answer. So we have about, a 45, 50 minute, let's say they left the store at 7:30, because at 7:22 they're at the convenience store. Let's say they leave a long time, 7:30. We'll just round it off. By 8:15, when Ryan has not returned home, calls are made to both men's cell phones and they go unanswered. Family members and friends call between 8:15 and 10:50. So for almost, 2.5 hours, friends and family are calling the cell phones, both men.
These are really good friends and family because you hear these stories all the time when somebody goes missing, sometimes people wait a day before they start getting worried.
Exactly. But because Ryan had not returned home to his pregnant wife after dropping Mark off and was coming back home for dinner.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. He has someone who's expecting him, but Mark, had people who were expecting him too. So many calls are placed to both men's cell phones and they are unanswered. They all start spreading out and calling family members. Hey, is he with you? Are they with you? They call the state police. Are there any, the highway patrol? Are there any accidents? No. So finally, the Edgar County Sheriff's Office is called and they beg them to do a welfare check at 10:50. So literally 3 hours and 20 minutes after they've left the convenience store and 2.5 hours after the first phone call is, the barrage of phone calls is made. The Edgar County Sheriff's Office discovers both men at Mark Prossy's home, and they're dead from multiple gunshot wounds. By 10:50, we know where they are and what has happened. And it is really weird. It's two 32-year-old men with no criminal background. An odd thing happened to Ryan Riddell, which we'll go into, which I can't help but wonder if it has something to do with this case. But two longtime friends, no criminal background. One works for his family's farming business. The other one is a foreman for a lighting company, just like sort of salt of the earth guys. And both of them are found shot dead in one of their homes. In my mind, someone had to know they were going to be there. Someone had to know their whereabouts, their
schedule.
Their schedule. Ryan Riddell's mother, Juanita Romine, she had remarried Terry Romine, passed away in 2015, and her husband Terry, who is Ryan's stepfather, promised her he would not give up, and he won't give up. And he has some of Ryan Riddell's adorable farm tractors and toys from his childhood that he keeps in a curio cabinet. And he's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep calling. Doing interviews is very difficult for me, but I'm going to keep doing it because I promised my wife I'd find out what happened to her son. And it's such an odd thing. So the person who has the case now, she was actually one of the first responders. She's Illinois State Police Sergeant Kim Cessna. She's the lead investigator on the case now, and she was one of the first people to arrive in 2008. And she says, is it solvable? Well, despite everyone's hard efforts, this case may never be solved. And Sergeant Cessna, I understand how you feel the way you do, but I don't want to think that because it's so bizarre and interesting and troubling, and they probably have an idea of several people who may have had a reason.
Well, of course. And it's the same old story. Somebody knows something.
That's for sure. So now here's the part that I did a double take. My head almost broke off of its swivel, and I went, what? So Ryan Riddell, about 7 months before he died, was involved in the strangest thing I've ever heard. It's not as strange as the story of Dog Day Afternoon, but it's really strange. So 2 men, Yusuf Brown and William B. Thompson, both from Chicago, went on a crime spree. Now, how they end up at the Riddell farm, I do not know. I don't understand, but let's just say you're going to steal some things and rob some people. I'm just going to put that out because you're going to see where this goes. They end up at the Riddell farm. They tied up Ryan Riddell, Jeremy Shunk, and Betsy Orwick, who were working on the Riddell farm. They stole Ryan Riddell's truck and Betsy Orwick's van. So both of the perpetrators are driving these stolen vehicles, and they get pulled over for a traffic stop. They end up shooting Chief Detective Tommy Martin of the Douglas County Police during this traffic stop. They leave Ryan Riddell's truck at the scene of the shooting and just continue on in Betsy Orwick's van.
So just to be clear, Betsy Orwick and Ryan Riddell and the other fellow are still tied up back at the Riddell farm.
Yes.
While all this is happening.
Yes.
Okay.
The perpetrators have left Ryan Riddell's truck at the scene where they have shot Douglas County Chief Deputy Tommy Martin. They continue on in the stolen van, but Yusuf Brown lost control of the van after a high-speed chase. So Yusuf Brown is captured at the crash scene, but William Thompson is taken into custody after he attempts an armed robbery of the First Mid-Illinois Bank and Trust.
Oh, my God.
So it must have been not far because they're both in the town of Arcola. So it appears that, Yusuf Brown maybe was injured at the crash scene, but he stayed there. But William Thompson went on to try and...
Undeterred. Yeah, I've lost my partner, but by God, I'm going to rob that bank.
Yeah, we've tied up 3 people at a family farm, stolen 2 cars. 1 car is abandoned after we shoot a sheriff and kill him. My partner has been injured or is staying at the crash scene for some reason. I'm going to go on and try and rob the First Mid-Illinois Bank, and I am then taken into custody after an armed standoff.
And meanwhile, back at the farm, how did they find the people tied up at the farm?
I don't know if they told them that, oh, by the way, there's these people that are at their farm.
Yeah, right.
Or if they got out from their bindings. I don't know.
Yeah, but they got free and...
Yeah. So we know the perpetrators are not free to try and enact revenge on Ryan Riddell, like he saw my face, I need to kill him, and Mark Prosy just happened to be with him. So we know both of the perpetrators are, in custody. Why 7 months later, and the police believe it's one person, because other accounts I read, it's like, well, the person or persons that we're trying to find, and I was like, persons, because there's 2 and they both look to be very young, strong, healthy men. Would it take 2 people to subdue them both? Could one person do it? I guess if you have a shotgun, sure. So now they're saying one person. They're saying the person. This was not, the first thing I think, oh my God, poor Ryan Riddell, was he caught in a robbery? First there's a robbery or a bizarre event at his, family farm. And then 7 months later, he drops his friend Mark Prosy off, and somebody's robbing his friend Mark Prosy's house and he's collateral damage. Or, is someone coming after Ryan Riddell and Mark Prosy's collateral damage?
This is a mystery.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a robbery. Nothing was taken from Mark Prosy's home. And the police are so tight-lipped about this, 11 years later. But what they're saying is one person came to the home with the intent to kill. One person came to Mark Prosy's home with the intent to kill Ryan Riddell and Mark Prosy. They're not separating the cases. They're not saying Ryan Riddell's wife in a fit of pregnancy rage killed them both. They're not saying Mark Prosy's girlfriend in a fit of Mark didn't clean up his breakfast dishes killed them. The cops are saying one person came to kill them both, or could it be that one person came to kill one of them and just had to kill the other? They have, again, not separated it.
This is really weird.
It's extraordinarily weird. So one quote is, we believe they were specifically targeted. We do not believe it was a random killing.
Interesting.
Yeah. They don't know what, they're not calling it an assassination, like that there's criminal involvement or that they're, of the two men, or that there's any enemies in either of their lives. They're both beloved by their neighbors, their community, their family for sure. They're just really good guys. Ryan Riddell had a baby son that was on the way. They both had established, long, they'd lived there their whole lives. They have long ties to the community. It's Master Sergeant Mike Atkinson, who's a supervisor with Illinois State Police Zone 5 investigations. He's the one who said, I have looked over every, piece of paper involved, every report. I have reviewed every word of every document that's been submitted to me. That's what he said. Because there's voluminous stacks of files. There's a picture on the News Gazette website of Sergeant Kim Cessna, who's now the lead investigator. And she has so many file boxes on a table. I mean, if it's two guys with no known connection to criminal life, no known weirdness going on in their life, why are there boxes and boxes of evidence?
Yeah.
So Sergeant Atkinson is like, we're still actively investigating this case and we will follow up any leads in the case. And Sergeant Cessna says, I wear this case on the weekends. It comes home with me. And it's 11 years later. And I just, when Sergeant Atkinson says, I've looked over every piece of paper and every word on every piece of paper, and there is no connection to Ryan Riddell being, tied up in a crime spree and 7 months later being murdered. It could very well not be related, right?
Sure. Really
it's not related.
But let me.
It is.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But I really don't like the fact that the police are not telling the public everything here. I mean, what meeting? I mean, I want to be clear on something else here. Ryan was dropping off Mark
mm-hmm.
at his house,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So why wasn't he just still in the car and drove away? Why did he go into the house? Was somebody outside and got them at gunpoint to go both together inside?
No, that's an interesting theory, Producer Mark, because they were both found in a downstairs finished basement.
Yeah, so they were made to go down there, obviously.
Maybe they came in. There's apparently a sliding glass door it goes to the outside. They were found close to that area. So maybe they were brought in through the sliding glass door. Maybe they were brought downstairs. That's a really great question, Producer Mark.
Yeah, because it seems like if Ryan was just dropping Mark off, he'd drop him off and drive
and
away.
Head home to dinner. You're
drive
right.
away.
That's interesting. Or maybe he, can you come in for a minute? Do you want a beer? I don't know. We don't know. That's the thing. No one will tell us. But it is troubling that the police are so closed-mouthed. I bitch a lot about not getting feedback or an answer when I submit, questions or Freedom of Information Act requests or, anything to try and get law enforcement to talk to us. And we have been very blessed to just meet some overwhelmingly amazing detectives who really reaffirm your faith in humanity. And sometimes they take a long time to get back to me, but they most of the time get back to me. The people that don't, I'm going to hold a grudge like you can't believe. But the Illinois State Police are I've never seen a case that appears, so not cut and dried, but so it shouldn't have a lot of tentacles hanging off of it. These men were not involved in a life of crime. Their families weren't. I mean, there's no discernible reason why these two men were shot in one man's home, these two friends. And to have the timeline we have, from 7:30 to 8:15, there's a 45-minute timeline where we can narrow down what the fuck happened.
Yeah, not a lot of mystery about, what could have happened outside the timeline because the timeline's so tight.
Exactly. That's the thing. And even in 2008, I don't know what, apparently there was no camera situation in Mark Prossy's home. Maybe they have the 722 stop at the convenience store because there's, possibly a camera there. But we don't have any, evidence in my mind that could be helpful like we have in the Anderson men case where a camera on a home captured both of them in an accidental drowning, as far as we know. But this is, there's a $25,000 reward to solve anything on the Ryan Riddell and Mark Prosy case. And I don't know that reward is going to come in handy. Even Sergeant Cessna said, if there's more than one person, someone's going to get tripped up and talk. And I think that's why they think it's one person now, because they have changed their tune from it being more than one person to we know it's one person and it's a targeted thing. Both men targeted. They're not.
But they're not saying why they think that.
No, they're not. And here's the icing on the creepy cake. The FBI is involved.
Really?
Now, I don't know much, but why would the FBI be involved in the seemingly bizarre murder of two men in one man's home in central Illinois?
Somebody would have had to cross state lines. Or somebody they suspect may have been involved would have had to have crossed state lines, right?
I don't know, Producer Mark.
I'm sorry. The lack of information from the cops just reminds me too much of the Peter Chadwick case with the police department out there in Newport Beach. It just reminds me too much of that. That it just seems like if we had more information, there are people out there that know things that can provide information. But I don't. This is really weird.
It is an odd one, and it just became more and more suspicious the more I dug into it. But I can tell you that even as close-mouthed as the police have been in this investigation, they agreed to do the episode of the podcast Cold Cases, probably because they knew Carol Varell would do such a good job of stating the case. But you can even hear, if you can find the episode, the frustration in everyone's voice who's connected. It's an odd thing that they will not release more information that could be helpful. But all I can tell you is that this case is truly a mystery to me. And I would hope that if anyone within the sound of my voice has one iota of information, because even the police are begging, if there's something that you think that you know, as small as it might be, give the Illinois State Police a call at 217-278-5000 and more cowbell.
Send us an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. Give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. Go to patreon.com/justthetipsters, and we'll see you next time.